Things are looking. Oh, there I am. Yep. Very nice. Oh, very cool. Very cool. I'm like a caveman discovering fire for the first time. I was just checking out my chat overlay, which maybe a little hard to see. Maybe just move that sucker a little higher up. It's gonna be unavoidable. If I'm looking at web pages, very much unavoidable. Getting like to infinite. Okay, let's get off my own Twitch channel there. So I'm chatting myself because I'm just all by myself here. Let's just leave it at that. And before we really get going, I'm going to just do a little quick update on Twitter. This is over a last minute slap together stuff. Barely touched my Twitter account, and I just thought, well, it's gotta be a way to maybe do a little bit of self-promotion. So I have a Twitter account. So why don't we just advertise just a bit, just to let people know that this thing exists. Here we go. I'm pardon the clickety clack of the keyboard. I don't know how to do these social media plugs, but I'm just gonna send it out and just slap in the URL. I was still using my old profile picture. Still using the Nighthawk vampire from Magic the Gathering. I guess it takes a while for that to update, since I did update my profile avatar, whatchamacallit, in Twitch to something different. It's like a reused asset from when I used to do a different podcast, but now we'll just go with this for now. All right, so I've done my obligatory twittering for today, or tweeting. I guess that's a term. Okay, so let's get this rolling. I think everything in my very rudimentary stream is set up. Good to go. I already did a sound test. I'm already running over 20 minutes late from my scheduled start time. So why don't we just start this up? Yeah. So good morning. It's a sunny morning here. And good morning to you, or afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is my stream. My name is Maclintok. We're going to do gaming news on this stream. We're going to talk game news. It's a variety show that I want to do here, where we talk about gaming news and we talk about various topics that are of interest to you and I as gamers, hopefully, right? As you can see from the stream title, we're going to look at the Apple versus Epic antitrust case that's going on right now. This actually began earlier in May, and it's something that I haven't been following too closely, to be honest. This actually started up last year around August, and what I wanted to do was actually go through some articles from gamesindustry.biz. This site actually has a fantastic recap of what's happened so far. You can see on the screen here. They have an excellent recap of how we've led up to this point and what's actually happening right now in the antitrust case between Epic and Apple. So yeah, that's going to be the main news topic today. There's a couple smaller news tidbits specifically related to games that are coming out that we could probably cover. But in terms of just like a headline news item, I think this has been the biggest story of the last week. Nothing else has really jumped out at me. And what I like to do for future episodes, this is a weekly show. So for now, I'm going to be doing this every Sunday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific. For future shows, I definitely like to poll the audience on what we could possibly talk about in the next stream. However, how that works is I'm gonna be looking at like what's happened in the news that week, so we never know what's going to happen in the upcoming week, since this is a position sort of like at the end of the week, at the beginning of the new week. But it's always good to get some feedback from you guys, since I don't want to be just covering the super clickbaity stuff, nor do I want to get too sort of, self-centered in how I choose topics, because what is of interest to me is not necessarily going to be of interest to everyone who's checking out the stream. So we want to find a happy balance. But for now, that's just going to find. I wanted to avoid doing a super games business centered news story. Sometimes these things can get a bit too dry, and if you just want to hear about what's going on with this or that, or the latest drama concerning a specific game, this is not going to be in your wheelhouse. However, it's sort of a slow news week, and I still think this overall, for its maybe ramifications for gaming in general and each of us as gamers, I think this is still a pretty important thing. So forgive me, I'm going to actually get caught up. We can get caught up together. I'm going to actually go through this recap article on gamesindustry.biz, and then we can get into more details if afterwards. Yeah. Let's do this. All right. So gamesindustry.biz, we got this recap from James Batchelor, who's the editor-in-chief on the site. The headline, Epic versus Apple, what we've learned so far. We summarize the ongoing events of this month's industry-shaping trial. All right, so checking out this subheader. The long-awaited antitrust trial between Epic and Apple is in full swing, and gamesindustry.biz will be chronicling the biggest developments and revelations throughout. So it seems like they will just continue to update this one article as they go through each phase of the trial, which is awesome. We can keep checking back in here a week after week if we feel like it, to get the latest news on this front. All right, so the story so far, this is what's really important to me, because I've been sort of out of the loop. So let's get into this. The story so far, it's safe to assume anyone following coverage of the trial already knows much of the background. Well, not me. But here's a short summary of how the two companies got to this point. In August 2020, Epic Games added a hotfix to the mobile versions of popular Battle Royale game Fortnite that introduced the ability to make payments directly to Epic when purchasing the in-game V-Bucks currency. Okay, so this is probably the biggest thing I remember from last August. This is the thing that grabbed all the headlines around that time, where we found out that Epic Games essentially was violating their developer agreement with Apple, and they found a workaround on Apple's platform. So instead of allowing Apple to take their cut of all in-app purchases, which you're required to give to Apple if you're going to be hosted on their platform, if you're going to have an app that's available in the App Store, you have to give them their cut. And so Epic found a loophole. And Apple, was obviously not very pleased when that happened. So let's continue. So I'll just let this guy. This guy knows a lot more about the topic, so I'll just let him do most of the talking here, and I'll stop interrupting myself. So this subverted the 30% commission both Apple and Google take from purchases made through their app stores, violating their developer agreements and prompting both firms to remove Fortnite from their respective marketplaces. Continuing on, Epic responded with both a video to its audience, satirizing Apple's 1984 ad and painting the iPhone maker as a tyrannical dictator, and antitrust lawsuits against both Apple and Google. It was a calculated move, one we now know was referred to as Project Liberty behind the scenes. Something I might actually click into, get more information on Project Liberty later. So Epic's key complaints are around the 30% commission on all payments and the inability to take direct payments, although there has also been discussion of opening up Apple's tighter ecosystem to allow alternative app stores. The 1984 video was controversial, with debate as to whether it was weaponizing Fortnite's younger audience, something exacerbated by the hashtag Free Fortnite in-game event Epic ran a few weeks later. In addition to removing Fortnite, Apple attempted to terminate Epic's developer accounts, which endangered any studios using Epic's Unreal Engine to power their apps. The engine provider fought back and won a restraining order that protects Unreal Engine, but Epic's developer account was terminated and Fortnite remained blocked. Apple also filed a countersuit dismissing Epic's case as, quote, nothing more than a basic disagreement over money. Both sides declined a trial by jury, and the trial was set for May 3rd, 2021. Okay, so let's take a break from reading for now. So already early in this situation, quite a lot of drama, a lot of back and forth between Epic and Apple, where we have Epic doing their little V-Bucks transactions loophole in their app in Fortnite, Apple responding by taking the game down, but also revoking Epic's developer account with the App Store. But they did this in a way that would not affect other developers and publishers who currently use Epic's Unreal Engine, which, as you know, is probably one of the big two game engines being used for most of the games you're playing now, the other one being Unity. Unreal Engine is near ubiquitous when it comes to AAA games on the PC and console. And it's used by quite a number of developers, indie developers, right? And it used to be sort of a rare thing to have Unreal Engine games on mobile, but it's becoming much more commonplace lately. And Apple even has gone as far as filing a countersuit against Epic, pardon me. I'm going to stop mixing those two names at some point today. I'm pretty confident of that. All right. So it's already pretty spicy, and we're barely a quarter into the recap here. So I'm going to continue reading, and then we can get more information. Okay, so they set a trial for May 3rd. So, it's really fresh, right? It's May 9th today. So it's not even a week since this trial began. The judge assigned to the case, Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers, has warned that given Epic's desire to open up the iOS ecosystem to other stores, this dispute could have serious ramifications for platforms such as PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. Just a side note, I've heard that the judge in this case, the Judge Rogers, has kind of revealed herself to be kind of out of the loop in terms of like knowing about video games and knowing about the video game industry. But it's good, at least to this extent, she's brought up the fact that what Epic is, trying to do with the iOS ecosystem, it actually has very serious ramifications. Like there's going to be a big paradigm shift if they get what they want. And it's not so much a specific thing to video games, but pardon me, it is based on just like generally what happens with these sort of antitrust cases where you're essentially trying to prevent companies from having monopolies in their specific industries. You're trying to discourage non-competitive practices that companies are often tempted to engage in if they're not checked properly, right? So very like sort of like in-depth knowledge of the games industry is not really necessary for a judge who may not be versed in this field to actually know about this sort of thing. So let's continue. Epic has also filed against Apple and Google in Australia and the UK, and Apple in the European Union. The UK Competition Tribunal blocked Epic's case against Apple, but allowed the Google suit to proceed. The case against Google has had a lower profile. Google has requested that courts not connect it to Epic versus Apple, and even asked for the trial to be delayed until October 2022, although this was rejected. Interesting. Yeah, I've heard a whole lot less about the dispute between Google and Epic. It is really the Apple and Epic stuff that's garnered most of the, if not all of the attention so far. All right, so on to the next main section here, the opening statements. So now groundwork has been laid. We're kind of like brought up to speed, and now we're gonna get a sort of an overview of what's happened since the trial started on May the 6th. Both Epic and Apple laid out their key arguments in their opening statements on Monday, with the former questioning many of the policies behind the iOS App Store, while the latter stressed the harm an Epic victory could cause consumers. Epic labeled iOS as anti-competitive and cited Apple staff, including previous CEO Steve Jobs, who discussed locking consumers into the ecosystem. It also said the cut Apple takes from purchases across the full breadth of the App Store is arbitrary and inconsistent, applying to digital goods but not physical, not applying to subscriptions until Apple decided it did, etc. Apple, meanwhile, argued the App Store's business model and policies actually improve consumer choice, and stressed how Epic itself has benefited from the store, including the money it has already made from Fortnite, which amounts to more than $750 million on iOS alone, according to Apple. It also disputed Epic's definition of a single market, and definitions are going to be key to how this case plays out. Then it talks about technical difficulties. The first day of the trial did not run entirely smoothly. For one thing, someone failed to mute all viewers on the conference call. Oh boy. Reportedly leading to 20 minutes of young fans calling for the courts to free Fortnite. Oh wow, that sounds like a gong show. Wow. That must have been actually pretty funny as well, I gotta say. Some documents related to the case were also accidentally released alongside those intended to be made publicly available. Judge Gonzalez Rogers would say the following day that there was no point resealing them after the leak. Well, that's another embarrassing oopsie there. All right, so now we're going to get into opening statements made by Tim Sweeney. Fortnite is a metaverse, not a game. After the opening statement, Epic CEO Tim Sweeney was called to the stand. In addition to reiterations of Epic's main arguments, this part of the session saw Sweeney describe Fortnite as a metaverse rather than a video game, claiming it's a phenomenon that transcends gaming, according to The Verge. Now, that term metaverse rings a very distinctive bell for me. And the next paragraph, yeah, perfect. He compared the battle royale to the notion of a metaverse as described in Neil Stephenson's novel Snow Crash. And the session explored the use of in-game concerts as an example. Side note, if you haven't yet read Snow Crash, I highly recommend it. It may seem a little dated now. This novel came out in the early 90s. And it basically predicted the ubiquity of basically the influence and ubiquity of online universes, online worlds. When the novel came out, like MMOs were still very nascent, but it basically created a future where everyone lived in this massive virtual reality world, and basically Ready Player One cribbed the hell out of Snow Crash. But yeah, I haven't read. Well, I have tried to read Ready Player One, and I could not for the life of me get through that book. I find it not so great. But Snow Crash, 2 thumbs up. All right, so I'm gonna continue with the article here. Meanwhile, Protocol reports Sweeney hinted at the vision for Fortnite's far-flung future, with a focus more on creation than competition. Scroll down a bit here. The long-term evolution of Fortnite will be opening up Fortnite as a platform for creators to distribute their work to users, and creators will make the majority of profits, the CEO said. With Apple taking 30% off of the top, it makes it very hard for Epic and creators to exist in this future world. The metaverse concept is one Sweeney has spoken about for years. He's touched on it at a 2017 DevCom keynote, where he also spoke out against App Store's 30% commissions for the first time, and told GameIndustry.biz just last year that the metaverse is going to happen. More recently, Epic's metaverse ambitions were won over investors, including Sony, who poured another $1 billion into its long-term vision. Then we have a nice photo of Mr. Tim Sweeney here, looking very pleased with himself, or trying to muster a awkward smile for the camera. I find this opening statement from Sweeney kind of funny. Not so, like, for one, he's using the term metaverse over 20 years, coming on 30 years after the term was first coined by Neil Stephenson in Snow Crash. And seemingly it's like he's taking credit for this new this new way of gaming, where it's actually been in existence for many years before. The thing he talks about when Fortnite players are not so much players anymore, but creators, right? This part here, the long-term evolution of Fortnite. Have we forgotten about things like EverQuest, Ultima Online, World of Warcraft, Second Life? You remember, guys? Second Life. Second Life was doing this where you would play the game as an MMO, but essentially a cottage industry of content creators sprouted out of the Second Life ecosystem, where if you wanted to customize your avatar or have various, cosmetic enhancements to yourself within the game, you could actually purchase these things that were made by other users in Second Life. And this was happening in like the early 2000s, well before, let's say, 2010. I remember reading about this stuff happening in Second Life. And it'd be actually interesting if we actually see if Second Life is still around, right? It's been out of the news for, since forever. It used to be it was sort of like an early meme at the time. You would be a WoW player or you'd be a Second Life player. And if you're a Second Life player, you're basically dealing with, things that were not of a PG-13 nature. You'd have more mature content on Second Life due to its kind of openness and allowing people to create things for other players to use, right? So you'd have, maybe flying genitalia in the game world. That's something that you would, of course, not see in your typical sort of fantasy-based MMO. You're not going to see that sort of stuff in Destiny, World of Warcraft, what have you. Anyway, I just found that very funny and interesting that Epic would seemingly be taking credit for creating the metaverse concept or being like a pioneer of this thing where, is absolutely not the case at all. All right, that's my aside. I'm going to continue on with the article here. Sweeney is unsure how an Epic win would impact non-gaming apps. Throughout the build-up to this trial, Epic Games and Sweeney in particular have positioned this fight as one being made on behalf of all developers, not just of games but of other apps. Hence, Epic's role in helping to form the Coalition for App Fairness. I was actually interested in this. I did a quick search. We can kind of get into that later, time permitting. This Coalition for App Fairness, that is. But the monetization models at play on the App Store go beyond just those used in Fortnite and other games, with dating, health, and messaging apps used as examples during the trial of businesses that could be impacted by the changes Epic hopes to make. When questioned about whether he understood the ramifications this case might have for such apps, Sweeney responded, "I personally do not." The Coalition for App Fairness is currently pushing for state-specific bills to deflect the 30% fee on both Apple's App Store and Google Play. While the bill failed in North Dakota, it made some progress in Arizona. Okay, a quick stop again here. This part here where Tim Sweeney's question about whether he knows how this will impact other apps, and he says, "I personally do not." Well, first of all, yes, great that he's being honest, and of course, I don't expect Sweeney to really care so much. I mean, this is essentially, obviously, a business-driven initiative by Epic. They are essentially just angry or upset that Apple is skimming 30% off their games profits. And this is not happening on other platforms on which Fortnite's available, such as PlayStation, Xbox, PC, obviously. On the PlayStation stuff, there's actually a new development there that hopefully we can get into next. It's a separate news story about a deal between Sony and Epic when it comes to Fortnite revenue sharing. So yeah, of course, do I really expect Sweeney to really care about the impact this will have on other types of apps? Of course, not really. He's just thinking about Epic. He's thinking about Epic's bottom line. So I'll continue now. Let me scroll down a bit. The Coalition for App Fairness is currently pushing for... Oh, I already read this, sorry. Next section here. Inside the Epic Games Store and Fortnite. The first day's discussion also covered the Epic Games Store, its business model, and whether or not it's profitable, something Apple called into question before the trial began. Sweeney confirmed the store is hundreds of millions of dollars short of being profitable, but expects it to turn a profit within 3 or 4 years. That's also really interesting. Epic Games Store came onto the scene around 2018, pretty close around the time that Fortnite itself blew up as a battle royale phenomenon. And it made a splash, the Epic Games Store, but not in the best way, as I recall. And one of their biggest selling points was aimed at developers, where instead of taking a 30% cut as Apple and Google do, and also Steam, Epic will only take 12%. So a big difference there. And in addition to the lower cut they take from developers, Epic also was very aggressive with securing exclusives for the Epic Games Store. There were a few very notable indie exclusives that they secured for themselves. I remember one was called Ooblets, and they did a few others, and that also caused a bit of a stir with gamers and, of course, the games media. And so overall, this is really cool. This is really funny because Epic, particularly the Epic Games Store, is definitely a scrappy upstart, a scrappy newcomer in the whole online games marketplace, which no doubt is undisputedly dominated by Valve's Steam, right? But at the same time, it's really hard to think of a company like Epic being a scrappy upstart in any sense, just because they are the caretakers of one of the biggest battle royale games in the world, which makes gazillions of dollars, right? But that is how they kind of position themselves and how they're sort of portray themselves. They're portraying themselves as like this underdog that's kind of fighting the system. And I think that's very interesting. Definitely a smart tactic to employ if you're trying to strong arm other companies into playing ball with you and to garner a public sympathy and support. But Epic is not a scrappy upstart. They are not hurting for money or influence or anything like that. They are at a disadvantage in some areas, as you can see, in terms of like online PC sales. And as you know, in the world of games launchers, Valve, of course, rules the roost with Steam. But, when you have a company that's willing to just invest hundreds of millions of dollars into their online store and be perfectly comfortable with it not turning a profit for upwards of 5 or more years, they got money to burn and they can just invest in this thing until it actually pays off. Back to the article. Several documents emerged alongside the trial that go into more detail around Epic's various businesses. One performance and strategy review of the Epic Games Store revealed the particulars of the $146 million Borderlands deal as an example of how Epic secures exclusives and the $11.7 million spent on games it would give away freely on a weekly basis. Yes, that's another thing that Epic did with their store is, well, first of all, okay, so they did they sweetened the cut for the developers. They secured a lot of exclusives, not just for indies, but some bigger titles like Borderlands from Gearbox. And they also made a point to give away a lot of free games, not unlike how Sony does it with PlayStation Plus. But that's if you're a subscriber, you have to pay into that first. For the Epic Games Store, you just have to download the free game launcher and create an account. And they would do this on a weekly basis, which is wild. Because with PS Plus, you'd only get a couple games per month, right? Okay. Another document gave more insight into the finances of Fortnite, revealing the popular multiplayer game generated more than $9 billion in the space of 2 years. $9 billion. Wow. Scrappy upstart, right? Game Discover Co.'s Simon Carless has written a more in-depth analysis about what we can learn from revelations around the Epic Games Store and Fortnite. Next section, Epic cut a deal with Sony on cross-platform play. Okay, so this is what I alluded to earlier. Some of the revelations from this case may not be specific to Apple and Epic, but I'll give more insight into certain behind-the-scenes agreements around the games industry. Perhaps the most interesting is the fact that Sony would only allow cross-play functionality between Fortnite players on PS4 and those on other platforms if it could charge Epic, an additional royalty to offset the reduction in revenue. Rather than fighting that position as it has with Apple, the Fortnite firm instead agreed. Our contributing editor, Rob Fahey, argues here that this is a smart solution to a complex problem. I did give Rob Fahey's article a read, and I have it in one of the tabs right now. Yeah, we can get into that, possibly. Yeah, this is something haven't had too much time to chew on, like this deal between Sony and Epic. Where Sony is basically saying, oh, yeah, we're hosting your game in our ecosystem on PlayStation, and this is where you're making most of your money. So Fortnite on PS4 is like the main platform for the game. That's where it generates most of their revenue. So what Sony has done is told them, hey, all that money that players are spending in Fortnite on PS4, I mean, that money, it goes to Sony, it goes to Epic. If we were to open up crossplay, this means that it's going to make players definitely happier because of the added flexibility. But also means like our competitors, our players who are in our competitors' ecosystems, i.e. Xbox, but also, more indirectly, iOS and Google, PC, they will also be able to play with our players, people who have been on Sony PlayStation's platform, and vice versa. That means like someone who's exclusively played Fortnite on PS4, they can just fire up their PC or fire up their second console, be it an Xbox or something else, and they'll be able to play Fortnite with their friends. And if they decide to spend money buying V-Bucks through their Xbox, now all of a sudden Sony's not going to see any of that cash. So what Sony's told Epic is essentially, hey, that missed revenue, we still want a piece of that somehow. And if there's going to be a shortfall in that sort of revenue share with you guys, we want to be able to charge you a little bit extra to make up for it. So I've seen other content creators earlier in this week really put Sony on blast for this sort of deal. I'm not so sure it's deserved. I'm just seeing it from the perspective of Sony. They have this cash cow, Fortnite, for several years now. And there has been no crossplay, and it's been working out just fine for Sony and also for Epic. And be it through pressure from Epic or from the players themselves, Sony feels perhaps compelled to open up cross-platform play now. But what is the incentive for them to do this? Right? Are PlayStation Fortnite players up in arms? Are they threatening to boycott Fortnite on Sony if they don't do the cross-platform stuff? I haven't really heard about any sort of campaign or any sort of undue pressure being put on Sony to do this. So really, what is their incentive? And if you're someone at Sony who's responsible for these business partnerships, creating these developer agreements with your developers and with other platforms, if you're going to be the one who's going to be like pushing for this to happen, I'd say, okay, maybe it's time we open up Fortnite to cross-platform play. Like, if that's just going to lead to your company losing revenue, I can't imagine that you'd be staying in your position for too long. So what? Yeah, I can totally see from Sony's perspective that they're trying to kind of offer this kind of olive branch to their players and to Epic of like, okay, you asked for it, you can get it. We will open up Fortnite on PlayStation to cross-platform play, but we need something in return, because what's our motivation, right? And if you're in the driver's seat like Sony is with your platform, if Fortnite is the biggest on your platform, you have that sway to be able to dictate these kind of terms. And if you don't take advantage of it, well, that's just money left on the table. So I can't just come out and blast Sony for doing for making a business move that's going to benefit them, but also benefit Epic, right? Because let's face it, Epic's gonna have to pay basically a nominal fee, I imagine, to Sony compared to the aggregate amount of money they're gonna make through Fortnite's continued success on Sony's platform, right? So that's just my 2 cents right there. That's a long article. I know, guys. Thank you for hanging there. I'm actually gonna check in real quick to see if there's been any. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. I was trying to see if there are any comments or anything, but there's not. On to the next section here. A Fortnite may return to iOS, but not on the App Store. Graphics card specialist NVIDIA was called as a witness this week, due in part to the company's collaboration with Epic Games on adding Fortnite to its streaming service, Geforce Now. This was first reported last year, but has since been confirmed during the trial by NVIDIA's Ashish Patel, according to iMore. Hope I didn't butcher your name there. Geforce Now is not available on iOS as a native app, instead released as a web app for Safari due to Apple's restrictions on game streaming services being released through the App Store. That's interesting. I didn't know about that. Gotta scroll down a bit here. Adding Fortnite to the service means that iOS users would be able to play the game, albeit via cloud streaming, for the first time since it was removed back in August. Patel suggested the game could return to iOS in October. The trial also explored Microsoft's own difficulties bringing its game streaming service Project xCloud to iOS. More on that below. Xbox has never made a profit on its consoles. The third day of the trial began with Lori Wright, Microsoft's vice president for gaming, media, and entertainment, on the stand. Okay, well, this trial is actually a bit of an ensemble cast, isn't it? You know, it's not just Apple and Epic making statements. We got bros from Nvidia, and now we got an executive from Xbox. So this is really cool. They're just getting statements from people from all across the games industry, all the big players. Okay, so Wright discussed Microsoft's business model and was asked about the profitability of Xbox consoles. She confirmed that Microsoft does not and has never made profit from sales of its consoles, but added that the revenue from subscriptions and commission from digital sales, which is a 30% cut, same as Apple, offsets this. So, I mean, this is a long-known sort of industry truth, or just something that pretty much all gamers are aware of when it comes to console sales. Is not so much that Xbox, Nintendo, and Sony make any. I don't think there's any profit margin to just selling consumers a box and a controller to connect to their TV. This, you know, regardless of how high tech the next gen systems are in any given era or generation, let's say, they have to sell it at under the cost that it has cost, under the cost of all the research and development, all the production, all the marketing. They have to keep the cost of that box low or lower than it should be, because they basically just want to get the thing into your living room, and then from there they're going to monetize you through game sales, through services, through DLC, through subscriptions, etc., etc. And so if you guys are old enough to remember the release of the PS3 a couple of generations back, Sony miscalculated the pricing of the console on launch. It was far too expensive for most consumers. And even the really bad thing about it was they really doubled down on the fact that the console was really expensive. They even kind of wore it as a badge of honor, and to the detriment, I would say, because the PS3 really struggled at the start to gain a foothold with gamers, whereas the Xbox 360 from Microsoft really took off because it was a cheaper console. Even though it was technically inferior, it was cheaper, and they managed to really push not only their Xbox Live service subscription, they managed to sort of get this sort of loyalty from Xbox gamers, where they have something called attach rate, which was like on average how many games one of their consumers will buy after they get a console. And I think it was some crazy number where most attach rates for other consoles were maybe in like the 2 or 3. Xbox 360 had an attach rate of something like 8. So like an average of 8 games purchased per, you know, your average customer. Anywho, just a side note there about consoles being like these sort of lost leaders for the platform holders, right? Moving on, this is still Lori Wright testifying. It's worth noting that Wright moved to Microsoft's gaming business in October 2019, having previously worked on Office 365 apps. She testified that Xbox consoles were designed for gaming only, omitting the TV, video, and web functionality Microsoft pushed so heavily at the announcement of the Xbox One. Wright also discussed the troubles Microsoft has encountered bringing its game streaming service Project xCloud to iOS. Last summer, it emerged that Apple significantly limited the test and ultimately rejected the app, claiming its security policies required all games to be reviewed individually. Microsoft has since found a workaround running xCloud as a browser web app. So it looks like they just went the same route as NVIDIA with their streaming service. What's it called again? Geforce Now. Yeah. During the case, Wright reiterated Microsoft's previous comparisons to other subscriptions and streaming services on iOS, observing that Apple does not require Netflix to review every film and TV episode in its library. The conversation also touched on the recent reduction in the Microsoft Store's commission on PC, brought down from 30% to 12%. Wright reiterated that, as Microsoft have stated, there are no plans to adopt this model on its consoles. All right, we're getting into like the final bits of this article. It's been a really good recap. It's long, but I really appreciate the detail this article has gone into this whole thing. Actually, if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna get a quick water break and I'll be right back. Did not plan on doing this, but I'm just gonna take a very quick break. I'm gonna find a way to I'm just gonna essentially put this on pause. I'm gonna turn off the webcam for just a moment, but I'll be right back. I just need a few minutes here, so just gonna turn things off. Webcam is still on. I'm just gonna shut off the webcam. I'll be right back. Okay, yeah. Thanks for waiting, and thanks for sticking around. I just need to get some water. Ooh, yeah, sweet, sweet water. And if you're just joining the stream, we are going through the sordid tale of Epic and Apple and their court battle right now over basically business stuff. Yeah. Epic's not keen on paying the 30% commission to Apple for the money they make on Fortnite. Apple is saying that yes, you do. That's essentially what's going on. And we're going through an article on gamesindustry.biz, which is providing a fantastic recap of what's been happening in the court case, which started less than a week ago. So, let's see here. Where do I leave off here? We're looking at this next section here. Epic pushed Xbox to drop subscriptions for multiplayer. Microsoft crops up elsewhere in the documents released around the trial as an email chain reveals that Sweeney tried to get the company to remove the requirements for an Xbox Live Gold subscription when it comes to free-to-play multiplayer games in time for Fortnite's removal from the store. Xbox eventually dropped this restriction last month, but Sweeney asked Phil Spencer directly if it could be tied in with the certain plans the Fortnite firm had for August, ones that would provide an extraordinary opportunity to highlight the value proposition of consoles and PCs in contrast to mobile platforms and to onboard new console users. Spencer declined, to which Sweeney responded that the Xbox boss would enjoy the upcoming fireworks show. Fortnite has attracted the FTC's attention. On the fourth day of the trial, an Epic Games executive revealed the success of Fortnite had prompted requests from the Federal Trade Commission over privacy practices. Thomas Koh, Epic's head of business and strategy for online services, confirmed he was asked by the FTC about the security of customer information. Koh was asked about whether there had been issues surrounding the improper collection of data from players under the age of 13, but further details were discussed in a sealed session. We'll be updating this article throughout the trial, and you can follow our coverage of Epic versus Apple right here. It's a little redundant there. So we're finally at the end of this article. I actually thought this would never end, but I feel caught up for the most part. Wanted to get more into this thing that Epic started. The whole coalition for app fairness and also Project Liberty. So I did already search up the Coalition for App Fairness. It's appfairness.org. And again, very clever of Epic to sort of position themselves as this scrappy upstart who is for the players, for the gamers. They're trying to do this sort of almost like a grassroots campaign, right? And the way they kind of message this is that, well, this is unfair for Epic, but it's also unfair for you. And I don't know how effective it is, but I will say that it's smart of them to go in this direction. So here's their homepage on the Coalition for App Fairness. App developers deserve a level playing field. The Coalition for App Fairness is an independent nonprofit organization founded by industry-leading companies to advocate for freedom of choice and fair competition across the app ecosystem. Join us. So, okay. Our vision. We believe that every app developer is entitled to fair treatment and that every consumer should have complete control over their own device. Our App Store principles will ensure a level playing field for platforms like Apple and a consistent standard of conduct across the app ecosystem. The 10 principles outlined include that every developer should always have the right to communicate directly with its users through its app for legitimate business purposes, and that no app store should charge unreasonable or excessive fees. Okay, let's talk about this. I don't know how this is supposed to be enforced. I guess what this whole thing is to kind of outline like a coda, outline a series of best practices that they can just present to the various governments who do have the power to enforce this kind of stuff. So, these principles are just, okay, this is what we want, this is what we feel is right. Government, put these into law, right? And so that you keep these all-powerful platform holders like Apple in check. Now, this part here, they're saying that every developer should always have the right to communicate directly with its users through its app for legitimate business purposes, and that no app store should charge unreasonable or excessive fees. What constitutes an unreasonable or excessive fee? Now, this is something that's very unclear to me, right? One would assume that the current sort of market rate of like these app store commissions, which is 30%, is kind of gauged or kind of calculated so that as a platform holder, we're compensated for providing you as a developer the infrastructure and essentially the marketing. Like, we're the mall and we are giving you a space for your store to sell your goods. And we're taking care of your electricity, your plumbing. We're giving you security. And by, marketing our mall, we're essentially also putting your stores, we're promoting your store's visibility to the consumer. So what's that worth to you, right? And none of this comes for free, essentially. So one would think that 30%, although it is quite high, maybe that is the amount it takes for costs to be covered while also turning back a bit of profit for the platform holder, right? Seeing as how the Epic Game Store is losing money currently, and they are touting their 12% commission as opposed to 30% commission, you would think that they're taking a hit because of that. And not only because they have a much smaller market share, they have a smaller consumer base than, say, Steam or Apple, but since they are deriving less income from their respective developers, they're just flat out not making as much money from their developers and from sales through their Epic Game Store. So it's, on the face of it, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the App Store should not be charging unreasonable or excessive fees, but every App Store is different, and they operate in slightly different ecosystems. It's becoming more and more of a one ecosystem world when you think about it, with like the proliferation of cross-platform saves and cross-play, right? And the sort of like burgeoning streaming services, everything just being all online and all digital all the time, it's becoming less of multiple walled gardens coexisting with each other, and it's becoming more and more blended. And that's really exciting to see. I don't know what that means necessarily for the future, but I think the net positive should be a good thing, because it means that there's going to be less tribalism. There's less restrictions for the consumer, and I think that's only a good thing for the consumer, because it's providing more choice for us, right? I just don't know. For like the unreasonable or excessive fees, also for Joe Blow, the average consumer, they don't care about that stuff, right? When I head to the App Store on my iPad, I'm looking for something to play. I'm not thinking about this sort of stuff. I just want to see what's new and interesting, and I want to see, like, is this a free game that I can just download and try, or do I have to like pay $10 for it? So there is some more details we can get into with their vision, but let's just scroll on down and see what else they say. The issues. So they also have it outlined here. Anti-competitive policies, 30% app tax, and no consumer freedom. Okay, so first off, carefully crafted anti-competitive policies. Apple uses its control of the iOS operating system to favor itself by controlling the products and features that are available to consumers. The company requires equipment manufacturers to limit options, forces developers to sell through its app store, and even steals ideas from competitors. Wow, that's quite the salvo. It just launched directly at Apple. Next up, we have the 30% app tax on creators and consumers. For most purchases made within the App Store, Apple takes 30% of the purchase price. No other transaction fee in any industry comes close. This app tax cuts deeply into consumer purchasing power and developer revenue. This app tax is especially unfair when it is imposed on apps that compete directly with those sold by Apple, driving up their prices and putting them at a distinct competitive disadvantage. No consumer freedom. If consumers want to use a modern mobile device, Apple levies a tax that no one can avoid. No competition, no options, no recourse. The Apple App Store policies are prisons that consumers are required to pay for, and that developers cannot escape. So he's talking about using a modern mobile device. I mean, if he's talking about, like, if you want to be downloading and using stuff off the App Store, you need to have an Apple device. That kind of goes without saying, right? It's not. I mean, this is very similar to how if you want to play Steam games, more likely than not, you're doing it on a PC, which is an open platform, but Steam is not available on consoles unless you want to count those Steam machines, which actually I haven't really heard any news about those Steam machines in ages now. But I guess they're still a thing, right? So I'm not quite sure what this deserves a little bit of investigation. There's a bit more going on the homepage here, though. Sorry for maybe the weird display. I am using a dark mode plugin for the browser, which sometimes results in some kind of weird contrast on web pages. But we'll try and get through it. Apple charges. Okay, let's see the breakdown here. 30% tax on most app purchases in its app store. And then it says 500% more than the upper limit of 5% charged by other payment providers for purchases. The source for that is AVC, which I'm not sure what that is. What is AVC? It talks about the 30% tax. This is getting into a lot more reading. Okay, we can maybe skip that for now. Oops. Okay. All in all, Apple makes, what was that, $15 billion in revenue, or $50 million plus in revenue annually directly from its app tax. It's from CNBC. Okay, here's what I said about the display being kind of funky because of my plugin. About the coalition, one company has near total control over the mobile ecosystem and what app consumers get to use. After nearly a decade with no oversight, regulation, or fair competition, it's time for Apple to be held accountable. The Coalition for App Fairness was created to create a level playing field for app businesses and give people freedom of choice on their devices. Our members want every app developer to have an equal opportunity to innovate and engage in commerce, free from draconian policies, unfair taxes, or monopolistic control. In the past, individual companies have spoken out against the App Store policies through efforts like Spotify's Time to Play Fair and Epic Games' free Fortnite campaign. Today, these companies and many others are joining forces to speak as one. The coalition represents all innovators, from startups to small developers to indie studios to first-time creators. Have your voice heard by joining the coalition today. Yeah, that's again like making a plea towards the little guy, right? The startups, the small developers, the indies. Join this grassroots movement, right? And then they have a list of founding members. Basecamp, yeah, Epic, of course. We have, what is that? Oh, blockchain.com, pardon me. Match Group, News Media Europe, Prepare, Spotify, which I've mentioned before, and a bunch of news links, and then contact information. All right, so kind of interesting. I want to click on this first point under the issues section, which I did earlier. This point being the App Store is ruled by anti-competitive policies. We have a sidebar here of a quote from Margaret Vestager, EU competition chief. It appears that Apple obtained a gatekeeper role when it comes to the distribution of apps and content to users of Apple's popular devices. We need to ensure that Apple's rules do not distort competition in markets where Apple is competing with other app developers. For example, with its music streaming service, Apple Music, or with Apple Books, I've therefore decided to take a close look at Apple's App Store rules and their compliance with EU competition rules. Okay, so this page kind of goes into various case studies, which I'm just gonna have to read off stream here because it's just more detail, and we're actually running short on time. I spent a good hour or more just going through the game industry's article, which I really needed to kind of get up to speed on things. But now we're really heading into the weeds now, and I think it's totally fair for, you know, if it's of interest to everyone, we can continue this chat in future streams, right? So the whole thing about they did mention in the homepage of the App Fairness website that they had that situation with Spotify and Apple a few years ago, where Spotify was not happy that, you know, they're paying this 30% commission to Apple, and I think Spotify also tried to do something similar, similar to what Epic's doing, where they tried to provide a service, or a subscription tier to their customers that would circumvent the 30% commission that they'd have to pay to Apple. And at the same time, they were also accusing Apple of having a conflict of interest, essentially, because Apple also runs their Apple Music store, which is like, you know, a competing product for Spotify. So they're just trying to highlight at that time where it's like, okay, you have Apple as this platform holder, that's all well and good, but Apple is also, trying to sell products that are in direct competition to people on their platforms. So how do you square that, right? How can you trust Apple to act in the interest of these developers on their platform if they themselves have stand to gain from promoting a competing product? So I think that's definitely a legitimate concern. It's not a sort of a one-to-one sort of thing with what's going on with Apple and Epic. But actually I'd forgotten about that thing with Spotify until now. Okay, so in the time we have left, what should we do? Should we just go into some of these other links from this whole fiasco with Apple and Epic? Or should we get into our topic of the week? My topic of the week was really just checking in with everyone and just seeing how their year has been going in 2021. We're in May, so we're nearly halfway through the year, and just wanted to get a pulse check on how things are going with your gaming life. You know, what games you're playing, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to for the rest of the year? What are some good things that have happened so far? And what are some bad things that are, have happened? And what are some things that you're not so happy about as well? And just what your outlook for the rest of the year is. So we can get into that in the remaining sort of like 25 minutes we have in our time together today, or we can just keep going on with this Apple and Epic stuff. I could go either way, to be honest. I kind of feel like I kind of just want to dig more into the Epic stuff. We have an article here that's more talking specifically about the Epic and Sony crossplay deal. This is the article by Rob Fahey on gamesindustry.biz. So maybe we just dig into this and see how far we go for the next, for the next little while. And then we can, however far we get, we can pick up on the conversation next week, as I'm sure there's going to be more news from the trial between Epic and Apple. And then we might have some more developments in general, right? With even with this Sony crossplay deal. Okay, so I just want to see what I have pulled up here on my other tabs. Yeah, we already covered this. Epic Store is not profitable, but will be in 3 to 4 years. A little bit of information about Steam. I did want to talk about possibly like a new Tom Clancy mobile game for the Division, but there's not too much juice we can squeeze from this guy. And yeah, some more minor stuff happening. So yeah, let's get into this. It's more of an opinion piece, right? It's not really a report on anything. It's a editorial. Sony's crossplay deal seems a smart solution to a complex problem. The royalty Sony and Epic agreed to open up crossplay on PlayStation has caused anger, but it's a nuanced response to the growing complexity of the industry's revenue models. It's only been a few days, but the court case between Epic and Apple has already provided a treasure trove of insider information on a host of different topics, from Fortnite's revenues to Tim Cook's confusion over who Tim Sweeney actually was, to the extremely ill-advised nature of running formal court proceedings over poorly configured live streaming software. Amongst it all, though, perhaps the most interesting piece of information is the one that's generated the most heated outrage. The reveal that Sony's reluctant decision to allow crossplay came with a price tag in the form of an additional royalty charge to crossplay games that are played disproportionately on PlayStation. Crossplay is something of a sacred cow for a lot of gamers, and for good reason. Platform holders may not be overly enthused about losing some of the word-of-mouth marketing they use to gain from buy an Xbox/PlayStation so we can play it together type conversations. But the quality of life gains for players are pretty enormous, not least because the reality for many of them is that buying a whole different console just to be able to play something with a friend is a ridiculous and unaffordable extravagance. Discussion of cross-play policies tends to get pretty heated as a result, making it unsurprising that the idea of Sony slapping developers with an extra royalty to enable the function is not making the company into the toast of the internet right now. As is often the case, though, the detail of the arrangement is a lot more nuanced and sensible than the strawman version currently being pilloried across social media. What Sony's rule actually says isn't that crossplay games must all pay an extra royalty. Rather, it's that if a situation arises where there is a free-to-play style crossplay game that's being played extensively on PlayStation, but generating most of its revenue on another platform, Sony wants an extra cut to make up for the shortfall in its revenues. I think this one paragraph is excellently written to just strike at the heart of the issue and to clarify things beyond just like the sort of attention-grabbing headlines about this topic. It's really well laid out by Mr. Fahey. Moving on, this is an interesting solution to a genuine problem. All the more interesting because it's a solution Epic was seemingly willing to go along with, and a problem that's in many ways a microcosm of the whole debate that Epic's battle with Apple has kicked up into the mainstream consciousness. Basically, Sony provides a platform, PlayStation, that consists of hardware devices that are sold to users, but also a ton of software and services from the console OS and APIs through various developer support programs, all the way to user-facing services like PlayStation Network. In order to make that platform economically viable, it takes a cut of the revenue from game sales, around 30%, and when the game in question is a free-to-play title like Fortnite, that means a cut of the in-app purchase, which in short is IAP sales. So this dovetails with what I had commented earlier when looking at the Coalition for App Fairness sort of overriding principles on their website, where they're talking about like, let's not have these platform holders charge excessive or unreasonable fees. But what is exactly an unreasonable fee? Well, they got to cover costs and they got to make a bit of money while they're at it too, right? And it's not like they're just charging this fee in a vacuum for doing nothing. They're providing a service for developers through infrastructure, through marketing, through visibility, all that sort of jazz, right? So let's move on here. Free-to-play games generally have various different things for players to buy, but often function by asking consumers to purchase a quantity of in-game premium currency, V-Bucks in the case of Fortnite, and you buy them for real money, and then using that in-game currency to buy the actual things they want in the game. It's the purchase of in-game currency for real money that's of interest to a platform holder like Sony, since that's the transaction which generates its 30% cut of the game's revenue. Sorry, I was just distracted for a second. Here's where crossplay makes things complicated. If the game can be played across multiple platforms with players taking a single account with them as they move between PlayStation, Xbox, PC, mobile, and so on, then a situation can easily arise where a player has bought in-game currency like V-Bucks on one platform, but is spending it, or rather playing the actual game, on another platform. This is something I alluded to earlier in this stream, right? If there are no restrictions in place, there's nothing to stop a player from whipping out their phone to buy in-game currency there. Perhaps there's a special offer on, or perhaps their credit card is already registered there, so it's more convenient. But continuing to play the game pretty much entirely on PlayStation because they prefer the controller and the graphical quality. In that case, the mobile phone platform holder just made 30%, while Sony, whose platform is being used to play the game, and which has committed various developer support and service resources to ensure the game is of high quality on that platform, doesn't see a dime. Some public games have in-game currency top-up cards that are sold at retail, in which case it's a convenience store that's taking a cut while the platform holder doesn't get a dime. This is all well and good if the whole situation is a swings and roundabouts kind of affair. I'm not quite sure what that phraseology means. Sometimes Sony loses out, sometimes other platforms lose out, but it all essentially balances in the end, how I see. But it's not hard to imagine a scenario where there's a consistent, ongoing mismatch between the platform where the game is mostly popular, which going by Epic's own projections is almost certainly PS4, and the platform where it actually sells IAP and makes money. If you accept that platform holders have a right to earn a cut of the revenues from games that are played on their platforms, and Epic for its part appears to have no problem accepting that business model on consoles, if not on smartphones, then this is a genuine problem. Crossplay, for all that it's great for players, creates a pipeline whereby the wrong company can end up profiting from the success of a game. Totally legit, right? There's something that gets even more problematic, at least potentially, when you consider that in the case of Fortnite, the game's operator also happens to have its own digital game store, and thus the ability to process payments for Fortnite from start to finish all by itself, without paying a platform royalty to anyone. What then is to prevent Epic from running regular offers for discounted V-Bucks on its own storefront, effectively moving more and more of the revenue from the game over to its own store, even though the game's success owes itself largely to being played on other companies' platforms? No argument from me on this whatsoever. This is just putting two and two together, really, right? To kind of extrapolate what's going to happen if Epic gets their way. Some of the solutions to the situation are pretty inelegant. The most notable being the annoying and artificial division between V-Bucks purchased on PlayStation and Switch and those purchased on other platforms, meaning that V-Bucks purchased elsewhere don't appear in your account when you log in on PlayStation or Switch. This manages the double whammy of being seriously annoying to players and not actually solving the problem at hand. While the V-Bucks themselves may not be portable, any content or features which players buy with them on another platform will be usable no matter where they play. Yeah, just like platform binding in-game currency, that is just a messy mess. Nobody wants that. That is just thinking about it, it's just awful. From the perspective of both, the developer and the platform holders, and for the player experience, it is just nonsense. I hope this never happens, right? So moving on here in the article, in the face of this potential problem, the additional royalties Sony levies actually seems like a reasonably smart approach. It only kicks in when there's a major mismatch between how much of a game's revenue goes through PlayStation and how much of a game's playtime is on PlayStation. Scroll down a bit. And contrary to the fuss being kicked up about it online, it only appears to apply to free-to-play titles, at least in the form whose details have been released thus far. Since someone playing on a non-free-to-play title on PlayStation has by definition paid the revenue share to Sony upfront when he bought the game. Sony and Epic's relatively good-natured wrangling to find a solution to this problem is in many ways a quite nuanced and interesting facet of the much larger discussion that's being provoked by the Epic-Apple legal battle. How much, if anything, is it reasonable for a platform holder to charge for running a business on their platform? What steps is it reasonable for them to take in defending that revenue? Far from being evidence of some grand anti-consumer conspiracy, the deal Epic reached with Sony on the additional royalty is a welcome and timely demonstration that there can, when both parties are motivated to figure things out, be a more productive way of hashing out these issues than the legal posturing we've seen over the past week. So that is the opinion piece by Rob Fahey on gamesindustry.biz. And I found it really helpful to just get more insight on the crossplay deal Sony cut with Epic. And I need a drink of water, so just give me a sec. Oh yeah, that hit the spot. Yeah, so really we got 10 minutes left in the stream. I apologize for being 20 minutes late to starting this up, but I think we can kind of start winding things down. We do have a bit of time. We can get into the topic of the week. And I did present the most basic of basics slides to sort of get into this. It's really about how your gaming year has been. I feel almost embarrassed to show my my presentation here. Oh geez, I'm yeah. The gaming year so far. Oh, there we go. 2021. So I did it I feel like I'm doing something at my day job. Granted, my PowerPoint skills are not the best, and when I'm doing a presentation at work, it would be a lot more graphically impressive than this. Now, if I put some extra effort into these slides, they're going to look marginally better, but I just really slapped this together yesterday. So I apologize for it being so dry, but I just needed a bit of a framework for discussing, our topic of the week, which is like, how's your year been going, right? 2021, we're halfway through pretty much. We're heading into year 2 of the global pandemic, COVID-19. And because of what's happened in the world due to this pandemic, we've seen first of all, the sort of human toll it's taken. Obviously, we can't ignore that, but if we're just talking about games, consumer, a lot more people now are staying home. So by staying home and also work from home, there's been a surge in demand for tech, right? I myself do not yet have a PS5, and those are extremely hard to come by still. There's a semiconductor shortage, and that has affected console availability. So for the next gen, they're so struggling with their supplies, getting those into stores. We have scalpers that are just snapping these units up before regular consumers can get their hands on it, which is obviously creating a problem, and it's a problem still, and it's likely to last into the end of the year, most likely, due to the demand, staying very high, right? Semiconductor shortage is also affecting things like PCs. So people are not able to upgrade their PCs. They're not able to build PCs because they can't get the necessary parts. This has kind of dovetailed also into increased interest into Bitcoin. People are looking for high-end graphics cards to be able to farm Bitcoins as well. People need more iPads, they need more tablets, they need more phones, they need more PCs, they need more everything that's related to tech. And semiconductors are sort of like at the center of all this stuff, right? So that's a problem. That's been a big bummer for this year. We also have had game delays with most companies adopting some form of work from home, whether it's like 100% or like a hybrid system of people in office and people working remotely. This has affected obviously productivity in some ways. The games industry by and large has benefited from the pandemic in the sense that people being stuck at home need to have alternate ways to pass their time. And so we've had an influx of new gamers as well as just an increase in game activity and just game consuming. But that it's not all sunshine and roses for developers because they've had to adapt. They've had to maybe shift the release of some of their games, right? And this actually impacts the current gen / next gen, where you have PS5, Xbox Series X. They're out in the market now, but because they don't have the player base yet, there's almost no incentive for a developer to just rush out a game if they can just wait until there are more PS5s and Xbox Series X's in people's hands, right? So we have a bit of a stalled current generation with the consoles. And overall, I would say we still have a bit of an uncertain future. The vaccines for the COVID-19 pandemic are being rolled out now all across the world, and I myself have already received a shot recently, so there's light at the end of the tunnel. But in terms of how things are gonna like pan out for the rest of the year and into 2022, we just don't know. Periodically, I keep seeing stories about this company or that working to bolster their supply chains, bolster their sort of production of various things to sort of meet the demand, right? But to me, that's just like PR speak. I'll believe it when I see it, right? So as of yet, we just don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a PS5 by the end of this year. We don't know if like graphics cards are going to come down in price. We don't know if things are going to be like really, if you're not ordering from Amazon, you might have experienced like delays in shipping and whatnot. Everything has just kind of been tampered down due to this an annoying pandemic, right? It's kind of slowed things down overall. So it's really hard to say what's going to happen in the future, and this uncertainty is never good for business, right? So, and what's not good for business also creates a discord for consumers. Semiconductor shortage, higher demand for tech. What a illuminating slide that I created here. A big picture of a semiconductor. So if we had more time, and if I had budgeted my time properly, and we had kind of like more, shall I say, just discussion time, we could kind of get into some back and forth about how this year has been for you. I wanted to talk about like backlog. Actually, this slide is just for me to get the conversation started. So you're wondering, what is this slide for? how's it been for you? I just wanted to get the conversation going by talking about like, oh, I've been playing more backlog games. I've been playing more mobile games, and essentially I've been spending more time with fewer games. So that's a direct sort of result of like all the stuff that was covered here. And yeah, this is me going on. I just want to get the conversation started. So the rest of the slide deck is really just me sharing with you guys how I've been sort of dealing with the situation, in 2021, and I've been playing some more backlog games, playing older games, and yeah, that's really it. But essentially, we're out of time, and I apologize for that. I spent way too much time on this Epic versus Apple stuff. Pardon me. And I admit that was more for my benefit, where I just need to get caught up on what was happening. But I think now that we're all caught up, I think in upcoming weeks, if we want to check back into this story, we'll have a lot more context about what's happening, and hopefully I will may have developed a more nuanced and detailed perspective on like the bigger picture, like what this all means for the industry and for us. So far, I don't have super strong negative feelings about what's happened between Sony and Epic, and I hope Epic and Apple can come to a similar sort of compromise. And I think it's definitely to Epic's advantage to be the one to come to the table first and be willing to sort of bend a little bit. I think Epic, you could say, due to how popular Fortnite is, that Apple has more to lose by not playing ball. But in the situation, I really feel that Apple's in the driver's seat. They're not reliant on Fortnite to pay the bills and to grow as an organization. Epic themselves are losing money from their Epic Game Store, and Fortnite. No matter what game you're talking about or how popular it is, every game has its time. Even a game like World of Warcraft, which has been going on for like say 17 years now, I think they've had their dips, and they're not quite of the relevance as they used to be, say compared, if you compare them like from now to like 10 years ago, right? The same is going to happen for Fortnite. Fortnite is comparatively very young compared to World of Warcraft, Counter-Strike, and all those sort of games. It's still, I consider it still a bit of a phenomenon, like even like it's not so much I would say it's a fad, but I think Fortnite's fortunes are wholly dependent on how the whole battle royale genre survives like the next couple of years, right? I mean, there's been this battle royale gold rush since 2017, 2018, and kind of a saturation of that genre for the last few years. So I don't really think Epic can just assume they can ride this cash cow indefinitely. And it's really important for Epic not to burn bridges. Despite being, a super wealthy, super successful company with Fortnite and with their, maybe with their store, but yeah, they're not a industry leader in some ways. They have their Unreal Engine, which they should not abandon that, obviously, but they got their Unreal Engine, they got Fortnite. They're kind of struggling when it comes to being like a platform holder themselves, and that's how I kind of feel like this kind of stems from like them wanting to be in the driver's seat when it comes to being a platform holder. and they just have some sour grapes that they're not, but they already are extremely influential, extremely powerful when it comes to having a development engine that so many developers rely on. Unreal Engine is just used everywhere now. They teach it in game design schools, right? It's a de facto, it's a standard, right? Right next to Unity. And Fortnite is still making bank, so they want to get their fingers in. They want to get a foothold in as a platform holder themselves, and they're just upset that they don't have that. They don't have that clout yet, and they're making moves to address it. And so that's why I think it's a little bit disingenuous when they do this sort of stuff with like Coalition for App Fairness and yada yada yada. I'm very near certain that were the position switched, if they're in the position that Apple's in, they would not be pushing for this kind of stuff, because they'll be the ones in control, right? It's just human nature, and it's just the nature of business. So, all in all, a very interesting story, a very interesting case. I hope if it doesn't bore all of you, I hope to just check back in once in a while, see what's going on. And yeah, until then, we are past 11. Although I started stream late, I do want to make an effort to be punctual with ending the stream somewhat early, or somewhat on time, I should say. I do have the rest of my day to get to. It is Mother's Day. I forgot to mention this at the top, but happy Mother's Day to all you moms out there. Hope you're gonna be treated extra special today, and I hope you have a wonderful day with your family. But yeah, this has been essentially the first stream for the channel here as a chat and gaming news talk show. And I'll be back next Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific, from 9 to 11. And we're going to tackle some other news stories then. And I hope you guys will join me for that. I hope we can get more of a discussion going as the stream, as we run the stream week after week. Hope to get more viewers, get more conversation going, because ultimately I do want to have this stream as a way for us to highlight topics that have come up throughout the week, and I can kind of help set the stage. But in the end, I do want audience participation. I think this is what this platform is best at. So hopefully we can kind of get more of a back and forth chat going about various news stories, and also just like various topics that I have prepared in my notes. But we'll just see. We'll just see how things go. We'll kind of start the news, and then we'll seg into like various topics as we see fit. So yeah, anyway, enough of my rambling. It's been fun chatting with you guys and talking about stuff. I will see you all next week. And again, thanks for tuning in. Later.